But is this where the traitor shows his colors here? Another echo of Beowulf, this time of the Coast Guard to Beowulf. Hama knows the staff could be used for something sinister. Hello everybody, welcome to Aude and Tulava, where we are walking our way through Tolkien's Legendarium, looking for new insights and a greater understanding of the works we all love. Today we're starting chapter 6 of book 3, The King of the Golden Hall. As we get started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, grab a version of the books you don't have in the description below if you would, like to support the channel that way. We also have a couple great deals for you in the description. You can get 15% off artisanal tea and coffee from Chapters Tea and Coffee, and also get the friends and family discount when you refinance or purchase a new home with Rocket Mortgage. Again, the links are in the description. All right, let's dive in. We left our now 4 hunters as they were riding south from Fangorn to the halls of Theoden, with Gandalf concerned about battle and war. They rode on through sunset and slow dusk and gathering night. When at last they halted and dismounted, even Aragorn was stiff and weary. Gandalf only allowed them a few hours' rest. Legolas and Gimli slept, and Aragorn lay flat, stretched upon his back. But Gandalf stood, leaning on his staff, gazing into the darkness, east and west. All was silent, and there was no sign or sound of living thing. The night was barred with long clouds, fleeting on a chill wind, when they rose again. Under the cold moon they went on once more as swift as by the light of day. Now, it's not an insanely important paragraph, but it gives us an idea of just how tired the 3 hunters are. So think about it. As the hunters were crossing Rohan in search of the hobbits, it was noted a couple times that they had to sleep. Both Aragorn and Gimli are noted as sleeping, but Legolas is always standing up. And after the second time they were mentioned sleeping, it was said, as before, Legolas was the first afoot, if indeed he had ever slept. Now, of course, knowing Tolkien, that doesn't mean that he didn't sleep, necessarily, but it gives us the impression that Legolas didn't need sleep in the same way that the others did, probably because of his cool elven powers. But in this passage, it says he slept. How tired do they have to be for Legolas to finally be noted as sleeping? Aragorn and Gimli must have felt like death at this point if Legolas was actually sleeping. They keep riding, and we have to skip a paragraph of amazing scene description, but Gandalf asks what Legolas sees. Legolas gazed ahead, shading his eyes from the level shafts of the new risen sun. I see a white stream that comes down from the snows, he said. Where it issues from the shadow of the vale, a green hill rises upon the east. A dike and mighty wall and thorny fence encircle it. Within there rise the roofs of houses, and in the midst, set upon a green terrace, there stands aloft a great hall of men, and it seems to my eyes that it is thatched with gold. The light of it shines far over the land. Golden, too, are the posts of its doors. There men in bright mail stand, but all else within the courts are yet asleep. Edoras those courts are called, said Gandalf, and Meduseld is that golden hall. There dwells Theoden, son of Thengel, king of the Mark of Rohan. We are come with the rising of the day. Now the road lies plain to see before us. But we must ride more warily, for war is abroad, and the Rohirrim, the horse lords, do not sleep, even if it seems so from afar. Draw no weapon, speak no haughty word, I counsel you all, until we come before Theoden's seat. So we get our first description and naming of Edoras and Meduseld. So we see where we get at least part of the chapter title, Golden Hall. They would be riding south with the sun rising to their left, reflecting off the thatch and making Meduseld look thatched with gold, and the golden paint on the post, I'm assuming, reflecting as well. And we see there's a mighty wall going around with what I'm assuming are sharpened stakes around the wall to foil any invaders. This is by far the most fortified spot we've seen so far in the book. And to top it all off, Gandalf gives a warning that they must ride more warily as there is war abroad. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this really is the first real warning of actual war. Eomer talks about orcs and stuff, but to me, it seems like it was really just rogue bands of orcs or something that he was referencing. At this point in the book, we don't officially know there is war happening. And I think this could be a decent heads up to what's coming when they get inside Meduseld. Now, as the riders get closer to Edoras, they ride along the wall. At the foot of the walled hill, the way ran under the shadow of many mounds, high and green. Upon their western sides, the grass was white as with a drifted snow. Small flowers sprang there like countless stars amid the turf. Look, said Gandalf, how fair are the bright eyes in the grass. Evermind they are called, Silmarillion in the land of men, for they blossom in all the season of the year, and grow where dead men rest. Behold, we are come to the great barrows where the sires of Theoden sleep. 7 mounds upon the left and 9 upon the right, said Aragorn. Many long lives of men it is since the Golden Hall was built. I'm breaking this section up into kind of 2 readings so I can talk about a few things after each one instead of just rambling on forever. for like 17 paragraphs. So first we see many mounds with flowers like countless stars. We'll get back to that reference kind of in a second. Gandalf tells us that they're called Evermind or silmarillion, I think that's how you say it, that grow where dead men rest. In this case, the sires of Theoden. Again, side note, please forgive my terrible pronunciation. It's essentially an Old English word, and I pretty much know nothing about the language. So first, the flower. Hammond and Skull let us know the word silmarillion is derived from Old English symbol, meaning continual, perpetual, ever, always, and mirna, or mind. Thus, Evermind. As Gandalf says, they blossom all year long on the burial mounds of the previous kings of Rohan. But why would there be 7 mounds on one side and 9 on the other? It doesn't seem symmetrical, which kind of bugs me a little bit. Now, I don't remember when or where we learned this exactly. It's been a long time since I found out about it, but the 9 mounds are from the first line of Kings of Rohan, starting with Eorl and ending with Helm. Helm dies with no living male descendants, and his sister son, nephew, ascends to the throne. The new line is now 7 mounds on the other side of the road. So here we have the silmarillion growing only on the barrows of the dead kings from Rohan. But what about the reference I mentioned earlier, the countless stars? Well, in Unfinished Tales, in the chapter of Tuor and its coming to Gondolin, while Tuor is treading the secret path up Gondolin, it reads, Tuor saw beside the way a sward of grass, where like stars bloomed the white flowers of Ulos, the Evermind that knows no season and withers not. And thus in wonder and lightening of heart he was brought to the gate of silver. Now, I'm not sure when this was written in relation to Lord of the Rings, or when, if like at all, it was like retconned. But here we have another little breadcrumb of Tolkien's greater legendarium. He really loves to sprinkle this stuff in, and I love to keep finding every little one that drops. It's just, yeah, I love bread, so, breadcrumbs. Okay, so going back right to where we left off, Aragorn says it was many lives of men since Edoras was built. 500 times have the red leaves fallen in Mirkwood in my home since then, said Legolas, and but a little while does that seem to us. But to the riders of the mark, it seems so long ago, said Aragorn, that the raising of this house is but a memory of song, and the years before are lost in the mist of time. Now they call this land their home, their own, and their speech is sundered from their northern kin. Then he began to chant softly in a slow tongue, unknown to the elfin dwarf, yet they listened, for there was a strong music to it. That, I guess, is the language of the Rohirrim, said Legolas. For it is like to this land itself, rich and rolling in part, and else hard and stern as the mountains. But I cannot guess what it means, save that it is laden with the sadness of mortal men. It runs thus in the common speech, said Aragorn, as near as I can make it. Where now the horse and the rider? Where is the horn that was blowing? Where is the helm and the hauberk and the bright hair flowing? Where is the hand on the harp-string and the red fire glowing? Where is the spring and the harvest and the tall corn growing? They have passed like rain on the mountain, like a wind in the meadow. The days have gone down in the west behind the hills into shadow. Who shall gather the smoke of the dead wood burning, or behold the flowering years from the sea returning? Thus spoke a forgotten poet long ago in Rohan, recalling how tall and fair was Eorl the Young, who rode down out of the north, and there were wings upon the feet of his steed Felaroth, father of horses. So men still sing in the evening. So Legolas is not being super precise here. In 2510 of the Third Age, Eorl and his riders rode south from basically just west of Mirkwood to aid Gondor and were given the area of the land that they now know as Rohan. It's currently 3019, so not exactly 500 years, but it's a little pedantic. Aragorn does let us know the Rohirrim came from the north, and there are still men there who were, like, they were related to, but didn't come down, so they were now having, entirely different language, thus sundered. And we all know the professor loved to take languages that are related to each other and explain how they became different or became sundered. And if you want the full story of Eorl, check out that chapter in Unfinished Tales. Now, unfortunately, I am not the person to talk with or give lectures about languages. It's never been my forte. But Legolas gives us a wonderful picture of the language. In short, I would say kind of earthy. And of course, he hears the sorrow of men in it because, they die and he doesn't. Not exactly. But we can't finish talking about this section without talking about the poem. I'd love to hear what you all have to say in the comments if you agree with my thoughts on the poem. So listen and let me know. From what I can tell, there are 6 metrical feet, so a hexameter. The best I can read, it's mostly kind of anapest, so 2 unstressed syllables and 1 stressed syllable. The first 4 lines start with a stress and then go into anapest. Where now the horse and the rider? Where is the horn that was blowing? It's actually like a super cool rhythm to give to like the horse lords because kind of bit of a galloping feel, right? Where now the horse and the rider? Where is the horn that was blowing? So I don't know if you're not like stressing it hard and just reading it, it still kind of feels a little gallopy, if you will. The rhyme scheme is actually pretty cool on this one. So it's AAAA, BB, CC. Lines 1 through 4 rhyme, then lines 5 and 6 rhyme, then 7 and 8 rhyme. And I'm sure there's a technical reason for this, like Old English poetry or something like that. I don't know what that is, but I'm sure there is. And I really like it. Those first 4 lines are all questions asking about this writer, Eorl. Lines 5 and 6 ask like where he is gone. And the last 2 lines are asking another question with no answer. And man, as I'm going through this, there's so much here. There's alliteration in each line. Even spring and harvest still feel alliterative. I can't wait for Corey Olsen to get to this in another decade or so. I'm getting better and better at dissecting poems, but I'm still a long way off from what like others can do who are more practiced. And this is just awesome. It's a really, really beautiful verse. And Aragorn, again, confirms this is about Eorl and his horse Felaroth riding from the north to rescue Gondor. Now, as the 4 companions reach the outside of the wall of Edoras, they are greeted by the guards. There sat many men in bright mail, who sprang at once to their feet and barred the way with spears. "Stay, strangers here unknown," they cried in the tongue of the Riddermark, demanding the names and errand of the strangers. Wonder was in their eyes, but little friendliness, and they looked darkly upon Gandalf. "Well do I understand your speech," he answered in the same language, "yet few strangers do so. Why then do you not speak in the common tongue, as is the custom in the West, if you wish to be answered?" So short little section, and it would seem not much to talk about. And I won't go into huge detail, but there is a super cool nugget here. So I took a Lord of the Rings class my sophomore year in college. Side note, it was kind of the easiest class I ever took. But I mean, it was undergrad anyway. But I did learn a couple things. One is that Tolkien was a big fan of Beowulf. Seems pretty obvious, but I didn't realize that there was this wider world of Tolkien at the time. I just loved the book and read it over and over. But Hammond and Skull let us know a couple things about this passage and the following paragraph. First, the challenge from the guards was initially longer, but Tolkien also wrote a draft that can be found in the History of Middle-earth in the Treason of Isengard. And the entire challenge was written in Old English and translated by Christopher a few pages later, so it's actually super cool. If I even knew the basics of Old English phonetics, I would try and read it, but I'm not going to make a fool of myself, at least this time. Secondly, Christopher Tolkien writes this. The passage in Beowulf, lines 237 to 57, in which Beowulf and his companions are accosted by the watchmen on the coast of Denmark, is very distinctly echoed. But once my professor in college told us about this, I got a copy of Beowulf and read it, which led me to discover another section Tolkien borrowed from and put in The Hobbit, but that's, a whole different story. We're actually going to skip the reading of the next conversation. The guards wonder who they are. Aragorn asks why Éomer didn't tell them about his coming. The guards get all shady, say they don't want to talk about Éomer. But Wormtongue said, no one's to pass. So Gandalf's response is honestly kind of peak Gandalf at this point. "Wormtongue," said Gandalf, looking sharply at the guard, "say no more. My errand is not to Wormtongue, but to the Lord of the Mark himself. I am in haste. Will you not go or send to say that we are come?" His eyes glinted under his deep brows as he bent his gaze upon the man. The guards kind of obviously decide to let them in, and after asking their names and being skeptical, he relays the message to presumably Theoden and is allowed to bring the companions up to Meduseld, and here we meet Hama. "I'm the doorward of Theoden," he said. "Hama is my name. Here I must bid you lay aside your weapons before you enter." Then Legolas gave into his hand his silver-hafted knife, his quiver, and his bow. "Keep these well," he said, "for they come from the Golden Wood, and the Lady of Lothlorien gave them to me." Wonder came into the man's eyes, and he laid the weapons hastily by the wall as if he feared to handle them. "No man will touch them, I promise you," he said. Aragorn stood a while, hesitating. "It is not my will," he said, "to put aside my sword or to deliver Andúril to the hand of any other man." "It is the will of Theoden," said Hama. "It is not clear to me that the will of Theoden, son of Thengel, even though he be Lord of the Mark, should prevail over the will of Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Elendil's heir of Gondor." And after almost fighting everybody in sight, slowly Aragorn unbuckled his belt and himself set his sword upright against the wall. "Here I set it," he said, "but I command you not to touch it, nor to permit any other to lay a hand on it. In this elvish sheath dwells the blade that was broken and has been made again. Telkar first wrought it in the deeps of time. Death shall come to any man that draws Elendil's sword, save Elendil's heir." The guards step back and look with amazement on Aragorn. "It seems that you are come on the wings of song, out of forgotten days," he said. "It shall be, Lord, as you command." Well, said Gimli, if it has Anduril to keep it company, my axe may stay here too, without shame. And he laid it on the floor. Now then, if all is as you wish, let us go and speak with your master. The guard still hesitated. Your staff, he said to Gandalf. Forgive me, but that too must be left at the doors. Foolishness, said Gandalf. Prudence is one thing, but discourtesy is another. I am old. If I may not lean on my stick as I go, then I will sit out here until it pleases Theoden to hobble out himself to speak with me. Aragorn laughed. Every man has something too dear to trust to another. But would you pardon an old man from his support? Come, will you not let us enter? The staff in the hand of a wizard may be more than a prop for age, said Hama. He looked hard at the ash staff on which Gandalf leaned. Yet in doubt, a man of worth will trust to his own wisdom. I believe you are friends and folk worthy of honor who have no evil purpose. You may go in. So here in our penultimate reading, we have a couple things to go over. First, we have another echo of Beowulf. Wulfgar, who is the herald to King Hrothgar, asks Beowulf to leave his weapons at the door. This is just where Tolkien packs in his Beowulf references, I guess, this whole section. Then Legolas kind of starts everything off with bragging about how great his weapons are because Galadriel gave them to him. It does seem weird to me that he stresses so much to them not to touch them, as I thought Aragorn and Gandalf let them all know their harem are honorable. I don't know. I guess honor doesn't go so far as to leave other people's weapons alone, at least in Legolas's mind. Then we get maybe a little bit of pride from Aragorn. His sword is like so awesome that he doesn't even want to leave Anduril like just sitting here. He doesn't think Theoden's decision outweighs his own, which is a little bit odd. Like, I understand he is the heir of Isildur, but he has yet to claim the kingship in like actuality, and he's in someone else's land. They're not governed by Gondor. As he finally assents to leave it behind, he leaves a warning and lets them know how old the blade is. Telkar made it. He was a dwarven smith in the first stage, so this sword is thousands of years old. But is this where the traitor shows his colors here? Another echo of Beowulf, this time of the Coast Guard to Beowulf. Hama knows the staff could be used for something sinister, but he goes with his gut. He believes deep down the companions are honorable and have the best intentions. In the next video, we'll see some shade thrown at Hama, but here Hama proves his worth. Like the Coast Guard and Beowulf, he has orders to follow, but knows the danger the kingdom is currently in. He makes the call to allow the people he knows are there to help keep something that could be dangerous to his lord because he sees their real purpose. I love Hama. And now we finally get our first glimpse inside of Meduseld. The guards now lifted the heavy bars of the doors and swung them slowly inwards, grumbling on their great hinges. The travelers entered. Inside, it seemed dark and warm after the clear air upon the hill. The hall was long and wide and filled with shadows and half-lights. Mighty pillars upheld its lofty roof. But here and there, bright sunbeams fell in glimmering shafts from the eastern windows, high under the deep eaves. Through the louver on the roof, above the thin wisps of issuing smoke, the sky showed pale and blue. As their eyes changed, the travelers perceived that the floor was paved with stones of many hues. Branching runes and strange devices intertwined beneath their feet. They saw now that the pillars were richly carved, gleaming dully with gold and half-seen colors. Many woven cloths were hung upon the walls, and over their wide spaces marched figures of ancient legend, some dim with years, some darkling in the shade. But upon one form the sunlight fell, a young man upon a white horse. He was blowing a great horn, and his yellow hair was flying in the wind. The horse's head was lifted, and its nostrils were wide and red as it neighed, smelling battle afar. Foaming water, green and white, rushed and curled about its knees. Behold, Eorl the Young, said Aragorn. Thus he rode out of the north to the battle of the field of Celebrant. So first, this is just beautiful. Tolkien just knows how to write a passage. And of course, we have another echo of Beowulf. Hammond and Skull remind us that Heorot, Hrothgar's hall, had colored variegated floor, and on special occasions, gold color shown in the woven wall hangings. But that's almost kind of beside the point. The way Tolkien just uses his words is just beautiful. And we mentioned this story earlier in the video as being in Unfinished Tales. It's also in Appendix A under the section of the stewards, sort of. And it's a fitting tapestry to have hanging prominently in the hall. The Ride of Eorl is how the Rohirrim got the lands they have now. They live near the north of Mirkwood, and it's a good thing they did ride down to save Gondor, because if they hadn't, who knows what would have happened 500 years later when the Rohirrim, maybe not have been able to stop Saruman from his aggression, or could not stop the orcs from reaching Isengard with marrying Pippin, something like that. All hope definitely would have been lost. But as we all know, hope is never lost. Estelle. As Huron said, Aude and Tulva. And that brings us to the end of this video. We've got 2 more videos before we are through with this chapter. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, buy a new version of the book you don't already have in the description, and don't forget to claim your 15% off Chapters Tea and Coffee or your friends and family discount on closing costs with Rocket Mortgage. And until next time, always remember, Aude and Tulva, day shall come again.